This is Pick One, Pack One, with everything you need to start your draft off right. I'm one of your hosts, Paul J. Camo, and I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Gavin McKay. How's it going, Gavin?
Hey, it's good. I feel like things have just been flying by this year. We're already more than halfway through the year, and Final Fantasy is just wrapping up right now. Feels like it's over in the blink of an eye.
Yeah,
But we're ready to actually start a new season of Edge of Eternities, and I'm super excited. How about you?
I'm very excited for this set. We're not going to get an eternity with this set, unfortunately.
No,
It
it's
looks
going to be a
like
quick one.
it looks like from Final Fantasy on, every limited season is going to feel really compressed, at least until we get to Avatar. It looks like we got a little more breathing room with Avatar.
hmm Yeah, I mean, it feels like Final Fantasy had all this hype built up, and everybody that I know has played it. It brought in a lot of new folks to the game. And if you're new to playing Magic, welcome. Happy to have you. But this is the speed at the game runs at. And it seems like just yesterday we were doing our primer episode for Final Fantasy, and now we're already on to the next set. So it makes me a little sad that we don't have a little bit more time with it. I know that it's still selling out. I saw somebody just go in and buy a couple packs of like regular play boosters the other day just to crack packs. So it's still a very, very popular set. All the characters are beloved. The draft format is flourishing. There's every single archetype that you could possibly imagine. This is probably going to go down as one of the greatest, most balanced sets as far as drafting and sealed is concerned that I've ever seen. It reminds me a lot of one of your favorite sets, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty, just in terms of how balanced it is, and also Lord of the Rings in that they really mesh together the universes beyond in such a way that it feels like magic, and the games are all super interesting. I know that some of the content creators that I follow have said that they've even played in their off time when they're not streaming. They are enjoying the set enough to play it, with their friends and family on Friday Night Magic and going to the local card stores. So even folks who play Magic as sort of their job are still enjoying the set enough to where they're not even tired of it yet, and they could continue to keep playing it, at least for a little while longer. And I wish that we had
Well,
a little
yeah,
longer with it.
Final Fantasy has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it, even as somebody who's not invested in the IP in any way, still not really invested in the IP at all. I really enjoyed the limited format. I thought there were a lot of cool things to do. I kind of felt you could do anything that you wanted based on the cards that you opened. You were
Mm-hmm.
really able to draft an open-ended draft and just kind of let the cards fall into your pool as you drafted them without having to, like, I opened this pack one, I have to lock it in now or I won't ever get to do this thing again. You're really able to, like, keep your draft open, explore all the possibilities, and land on a good deck almost every time. I had very few stinkers that I wasn't happy about in this format.
Yeah, and I met a bunch of people who had never played Magic before, and were just coming to this game because they saw, that Final Fantasy, one of their favorite games, was doing this kind of crossover. And so, shout out to those folks who fell in love with this game now, because it's a challenge. It's really fun. It moves your brain in similar ways to an RPG. So you definitely want to make sure that, if you're interested in the game, that you can get the resources, that you can absorb all of the information that's coming at you. And we love to be a resource for people who are new to the game and just want to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
We're more than happy to be that resource, that guide.
And here we are on the edge of a new format. So we
That's
bid
right.
one format farewell, and
Fond
the,
farewell.
the a fond farewell. And now, as we approach this new format, Gavin, before we even start diving into mechanics and stuff, I need to ask you a big picture question. We've got to, like, strap our space helmet
Helmets.
on
Hmm.
And yeah, I need to ask, is this a hat set?
So I think that,
And I think we need to explain to folks who don't
yeah.
understand what we mean, what is a hat set, first of all?
Well, I'm wearing a hat. You're wearing a hat. Does that make us hat people? I don't know. No, that's a philosophical question for sure. No, a hat set is something that was coined in the magic community as a slightly cheeky way of saying that the content of Magic the Gathering is kind of taking a backseat to a play premise. So, for example, like if there was a cowboy set, all of the famous Magic characters would now be wearing cowboy hats, aka Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Or last year with Murders of Karlov Manor, they're wearing detective hats. There is this sense that, instead of developing previously thought of storylines or going to planes that have existed, and had previous stories on there, that some of the design elements have been thought of in such a way that it's a multiverse approach where this universe has a bunch of cowboys in it. And so all the Magic characters have a story centered around cowboys and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it very much feels to me, Gavin, like during design they just said, okay, we want to do a cowboy set, we want to do a murder mystery set, we want to do an 80s horror set. And so the kind of the like powerful storytelling from certain sets that we've seen in the past almost feels like it's lost in the sauce of well, let's just play dress up. It's almost like
Mm.
the Magic characters are cosplaying as whatever the flavor IP theme of the month is, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether that's good or bad. I can't really speak to whether that's good or bad.
Mm-hmm. So, as somebody who didn't come from a very connected place of history of lore on all the different planes, I know that the story of Magic is deep. I know that there are many content creators out there who've done hours and hours of video on the lore of different planes and planeswalkers and the story of Magic. It's very deep and rich, and stretches back 30 years, And so, to some people, I'm sure putting a cowboy hat on Jace the Mind Sculptor, or adding loot, as a new character to the story that shows up in all of these different places, may seem a little bit cheap. But that being said, I come from it as a newer player who didn't really have that same entrenched backstory. So I'm looking at this with a kind of a fresh perspective and thinking, you know, is it the most creative thing in the world? From a lore standpoint, I don't know. Is it worth, you know, making a lot of noise about? I don't particularly see it that way, especially because some of those sets are my favorite sets to play in draft and in sealed. Like, I loved
Okay.
Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I Although it was silly, although there were some very odd characters or things that didn't necessarily feel very magicy, it felt more Cowboys in the West. There was a lot of fun that I ended up having with the set, even if I didn't connect strongly with the characters necessarily. The mechanics of the set for me were very sound and did feel very flavorful. I enjoyed the set a lot. I love Infinity sets, and to me, Edge of Eternities kind of feels like an expansion on the concept of the Infinity sets and the Galaxy sets. To me, it has. I think it's a ciliometer. If you were gonna say maybe Cons of Tarkir and Tarkir Dragonstorm is like an 8 or a 9 on the serious meter for how serious the story is and how serious the characters are and how dire the stakes are, Tarkir Dragonstorm is an 8 or a 9. I mean, the stakes are high. we were talking about the flavor text. It's brutal, you know. Some of the flavor text and the atmosphere, it's very dark. And if you go to the other end of the spectrum and you find the Outlaws of Thunder Junction and the Murders of Karloff Manor, it's a murder mystery, so the stakes are maybe a little bit higher. But I think the silliness meter of, oh, hey, we're just going to try and have a little bit of fun with this and don't really necessarily take ourselves too seriously about it, because we want to make the game fun and engaging. As long as people are having fun and as long as people are engaging positively with the set because they design the mechanics really well, I don't really see a problem with the particular setting. Now,
Okay.
one caveat to that for me is if the mechanics and the set doesn't really work, or if it's boring, there's a lot less that would drive me to kind of go back to that area. So we talked about Ether Drift, earlier this year, and all of the mechanics around the different vehicles and the different driving, cars and everything else. For me, Ether Drift is not going to go down as one of those sets that I will go back and replay infinitely, because I just don't think that the mechanics, pun intended, were there to draw me back and be engaging enough to where I feel like I need to go back. Generally speaking, I don't think that hat sets, for the term that you used, are mechanically sound enough to warrant a revisit, And I hope I'm wrong about this one, but it is a valid concern. It is a valid question. I think that for me, I think that this is probably a hat set. Yeah, definitely.
I don't disagree. I think it's cool that we're going and getting a space opera. I really think that's neat because it does allow them to kind of tackle interesting things mechanically, as we're going to see, with kind of a twist on vehicles, in my opinion, that we'll talk about. But I don't know, flavor wise, I really like your idea of the seriousness meter. And this really airs more towards the campiness side for me. It definitely is not a 10 on the serious scale. I've probably got it somewhere 3 to 5 on the serious scale.
Yeah. What would you put Final Fantasy at? Because we just sang its praises. It's a very well balanced set.
So here's
To me,
the
it
thing for
feels
me. Universes Beyond sets exist on a whole different scale because they're not part of the inner magic lore and story. So I put them,
okay.
I let them kind of stand and represent themselves. And if they knock the IP out of the park and they're really flavorful, like Lord of the Rings, that set, out of control, amazing. I love that. I felt like they knocked everything out of the park, from both lore meets mechanics, etc. I thought that set was great. Final Fantasy not having any connection to the IP felt a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the format. People feel like the flavor is a win with the mechanics. That's great. I'm super jazzed about that. And I would like to see more of them knocking the ball out of the park, but I don't think we can compare apples to apples when we're talking about in-universe Magic sets.
Gotcha. Well, with the appearance of more Universes Beyond content, the next 2 out of the 3 sets are going to be Universes Beyond. I hope that they still do have a bit of levity to them, because that's something that I really like. That's something that I really enjoy. I mean, I loved Khans of Tarkir as a great set to draft, a great set to play. I really enjoyed the sealed aspects of it, but it was very serious. It was very heavy. I almost felt like I couldn't draft it too much because the stakes, felt so high. Maybe that's a little bit dramatic, but it's one of those things where if you're playing this, say, with your friends every Friday night, and you're dueling with dragons every single Saturday or every single Friday, you get to a point where you're like, how many times can I get Uranied? How many times can my kin tree severance, how many times can it ruin my day? So I think adding a little bit of levity to it is always a good idea. And I hope they take that approach. I mean, really, I love to see a little bit of goofiness and playfulness because it's a game, and I love having fun and exploring those kinds of ideas. That's how I feel about it.
100%. 100%. I'm with you on that. That's a really good take. I like that. So, moving into the mechanics of the set, strapping
Yeah,
in and getting ready
we
to
got to put
blast
our we got to
off
put our
into this
space
set.
suits,
Yeah.
on. We should get like helmets now and speak like, go in, Paul.
Yeah. I was doing a Darth Vader more than I was doing a spacesuit there. So, talk to me about this set. We've got 331 cards that are going to comprise the limited format,
Mm-hmm.
276 draft cards, 45 stellar sites that are something that we'll get to, and 10 special guests. How do
Yeah.
you look at approaching this new format? What are kind of the things that are pulling to you as things to explore, even before we start talking about the signposts themselves? Like,
Yeah.
what are the things that
So
you're looking at?
one thing that I'm always looking at when I look at a new set is, first of all, what's the removal? uh, I also want to look for general themes throughout the entire set, as in, does this set have a lot of mana acceleration? Does this set have a lot of artifact synergy? Does this set have a lot of creatures and creature creation, so tokens and things like that? And what is the thing that's really going to bind this whole thing together? For me, one thing that I immediately see when I look at Edge of Eternities, the first thing that was ever revealed to us was a planeswalker, Tezzeret, who cares about artifacts. So I feel like this set is going to be very artifact heavy. All of the new mechanics that we're going to be talking about today will usually have something to do with artifacts and or you know making artifacts or creating something with artifacts. So be prepared for a very artifact heavy set. Get your your artifact hate, your braids ready, I guess, to make sure that you can handle those. I think disenchant, right, is another artifact removal spell.
Yep, that's
So
classic.
it's one of those things where if you can sort of approach the set and look at, I mean, I looked at how many artifacts are actually in the set. About a third of the cards that are printed in the set are artifacts. And that's not to mention
74.
any and all 74 artifacts, not to mention all of the ones that either make artifacts or use artifacts in some way. So let's jump into it, Paul. Do you want to take the
Yeah,
first one?
yeah. Let's talk about the mechanics. The first mechanic we have is spacecraft,
Mm-hmm.
which there are 22 spacecraft in our
22.
74
Yep.
artifacts.
All of them are artifacts. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we pull up, say, just the first one that's there on the screen,
Atmospheric greenhouse. It's
atmospheric greenhouse. Yeah. Do you wanna read this one?
so it's an atmospheric greenhouse. It's 5 mana, 4 and a green for an artifact spacecraft. Whenever the spacecraft enters, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. And then it has this new mechanic called Station. You want to explain Station?
Yeah. So station says tap another creature you control, put charge counters equal to its power on this spacecraft. Station only as a sorcery. This artifact is an artifact creature at 8+ station counters. And the atmospheric greenhouse is a 5/4 with flying and trample at 8+ station counters. I really
So,
feel like station and station artifacts are just vehicles with a different criteria for activating them. And that's kind of
mhm.
how I'm approaching this set. So I've kind of been looking at like Kaladesh and Outlaws that we were just talking a lot about as having like, or even Aether Drift in particular, also as being like vehicle sets that I'm drawing comparisons to kind of approach analyzing this set. But
One
this is
thing that's
different.
nice, one thing that's nice about this card in particular is that it buffs all your creatures to help it, become a station faster. If you've got a 3/3 on board, or a 2/3, or 3/2, and then even if you just have the one creature and it gets this buff, it instantly allows it to crew the turn after it comes down, or excuse me, station. I'm going to keep calling it crew. It's not crew, it's station. Remember, it's only as a sorcery, so that's
Yeah.
good. But I believe you can also use creatures that are summoning sick to tap, so
Okay.
just remember that as well. If you play a creature, if you're not going to be using it to block, you can always use it to station. And so you should be able to utilize not only tapping all of your mana and being very mana efficient, but also picking your spots for your ability to station.
Well, Gavin, it's really nice that you brought that up, because that actually
Yeah,
leads us right to a discussion on the next mechanic, which is warp.
right. Yep. So the interesting thing about this mechanic is it kind of reminds me of Enlist. Excuse me, not Enlist. There was a mechanic that put Outlast, which is a mechanic that you could tap your creature and I maybe play some mana and put counters on your creature and tap it. So I believe there's a Khans of Tarkir.
Khans of Tarkir block. Yep.
Yeah. So you're basically giving up, advantage. Your opponent can hit you during that time to buff up your creature or to put counters somewhere. So that mechanic reminds me a lot of this, but maybe a little bit better because, again, you can do that with non-summoning sick creatures. But let's talk about warp, because warp is really interesting, which is here. Where's the warp? Here, warp.
Yeah.
Yes, so
So
warp
let's look at this
is
Bygone Colossus right here, because this is a wild
perfect.
one.
Yeah, Bygone
This is a
Colossus is a
9-mana,
really
9/9
interesting
artifact
card.
creature. Sorry, go ahead.
So Bygone Colossus is 9 mana, colorless, artifact creature, robot giant, and it has warp 3. It's also 9/9. So warp is you can cast this card from your hand for its warp cost. Exile this creature at the beginning of your next end step, then you can cast it from exile on a later turn. So this is similar to the adventure mechanic, which was in the Thrones of Eldraine and Wilds of Eldraine sets, in that you can cast a spell and then cast the other half later. This is the same card both times. It doesn't give haste or anything like that. It just comes down, produces an effect, and then warps out at the end of the turn. So it's very good for this kind of crewing mechanic. You kind of see if you warped this in, played the atmospheric greenhouse, and then immediately was able to station it by using that 9 power. I feel like that's going to be a very good synergy point. Having high toughness creatures is going to be very important in this format, I feel.
Toughness or power? Having
Excuse me,
high
power.
power is going to be
Having high power is
important
going to be important.
for sure.
That's right. Yeah. So, and if you can cheat it out by warping it and using it for that ability, that's even better. Now, there are some other cards. Usually, again, if you have warp, it's probably for an enter the battlefield effect. There are 32 cards in the set that have this warp mechanic. So just pay attention to that. They're in all colors, I believe. And again, there's also a colorless. And so just keep an eye on that. You can use it to station your spacecraft. And also, in addition, there are 5 planets that also have station. Do you want to just go over all 5 of these really quick?
Yeah, let's go start with the white one.
Yep, so the white one is Adagia Winsep Bastion. Enters tapped, can add white, and then you can also station it. And then when it's stationed, you can pay 3 and a white to tap it to create a token that's a copy of target artifact or enchantment you control, except it's legendary. Activate only as a sorcery. So that's kind of an interesting line of text. It basically creates a legendary copy of a artifact or creature you control. Excuse me, artifact or enchantment you control. I don't know what the benefit of having it become a legendary is, but any sort of copy effect for 4 mana is usually pretty good.
I think it's just
And
a
like we
limiting
said,
factor on it, so you don't have too many of them, just
yeah,
being able to just keep spitting out an artifact every turn
every
could get
turn.
really nutty.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
true. The second one, Evendo Walking Haven, is again a planet that enters tapped. And it has, after you've stationed it for 12 plus, you can pay 1 green and tap it to add green for each creature you control. Does that sound familiar to anybody?
Sounds like a cradle belonging to someone named Gaia,
Yeah,
perhaps.
Guy's
Yeah,
Cradle. That's insane.
Gaia's Cradle on a new
In
card,
limited.
But you don't have to pay $800 or however much a Gaia's Cradle is now. You can
No, you only have to
have this
pay
instead.
$20.95. Or 63 for the really beautiful one. Anyway, yeah, that's a really cool effect. Again, these types of effects where you get to add mana for the number of something that you have, whether it's creatures or other things, we'll get to in a minute. But
Yeah.
it's a very, very powerful effect, especially in green, which prioritizes its ramp and its large creatures. You want to take the next one?
Yeah, so the red one is Caveron Memorial World. And this also stations at 12. This is our red tapping for mana 1. And it has at station 12, 1 in a red, tap, sack a land, create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. Then creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain haste until end of turn.
Pretty
So
good.
that's pretty cool. Turn your land that you don't need anymore into hasty 3/2s on attack the first
Yeah.
time they attack, and then 2/2s from then on.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's very red in the color pie, taking the resources that you have and using them for offense is perfect. We've got Susur Secundi, the Void Altar, enters tapped, adds black. And then at 12 plus, you can pay 1 and a black to tap it and pay 2 life to sacrifice a creature and draw cards equal to the sacrificed creature's power. Activate only as a sorcery. This is a sacrifice outlet. This is a draw outlet. This is a really good black sacrifice effect because it lets you draw cards for that.
Gavin, how familiar are you with Dune?
With Dune, I've definitely
Yeah.
seen all the movies.
Okay. The name of this really makes me think of the Salsa Secundus, if I'm pronouncing that
Okay.
right or remembering that right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm forgetting what it is, but it's the planet where the Sardaukar on Dune come from. And so all I can hear now in my head is the evil throat singing in that
The
scene where
drum,
they're on that
yes, the
planet.
black and white.
Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, no, this got evil vibes for sure. I mean, look at that secondary art here. Like that looks like exactly as you're describing. Evil place. So I definitely think that this one represents the black in the color pie as well. They all do something very unique, and getting to 12 station, I don't think it's going to be the easiest thing in the world. But if you are in a long game, if the game is going long, and you're able to just pump a little bit of power into this maybe every turn or every other turn, you should still be able to have this as an available option later on in the game.
Yeah.
There's one more, which is I'm
in
most
limited,
excited
the
about.
payoffs for red and black and white both feel really good. The
Mm-hmm.
payoffs for green and blue feel less exciting.
Well, let's
But
talk
we can
about blue
talk about
because
the
this one
blue one
is my
also.
favorite. This is Earthos, the Titanic God Core. Enters tapped and it adds blue. And then at 12, you can pay one blue and tap it to add blue for each artifact you control. That reminds me of another land that also is very powerful and very expensive.
And very banned in most formats.
Very banned in most formats for
Tolarian
good
Academy.
reason. Tolarian Academy This is Tolarian Academy in limited, which I never thought I'd see the day. Tolarian Academy is one of the most busted cards ever printed. Basically gives you free mana.
If you've built your deck around it, yeah.
Build your deck around it. You could basically have up to infinite mana on turn 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, there's a million combinations and combos you can do with it. It's a perfect utility land. Honestly, unrestricted. If this didn't have, you know, Station 12, you know, would be completely busted in every format, you know, but especially in limited. This is a crazy card. Like I said, the 12 power investment that you can get into it may be pretty restrictive and limited, you know, especially in like a draft format.
That's where I'm asking the question, Gavin, is how good is this and the green one when you're not going to have these online until super late game?
Yeah.
What is
and you
your
already
end
will
goal
have
then?
a lot of your mana out anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's diminishing returns, right? You know, is this better on turn 3, 4, 5? Absolutely. Are you going to get it on turn 3, 4, 5? Probably not. Not unless you can generate 12 power worth of not artifacts. Unless you can, well, yeah, they probably would have to be artifacts for this to be good. If you could generate 12 power over 5 turns and just commit to taking a beating in the meantime, yeah, I can see this being good, but it's a very, very corner case. And again, if your opponent has any interaction or gets rid of some of your artifacts for some reason, or you have to use your artifacts to block or whatever else, you know, I don't see this being very good and limited. Is it a very expensive card? Yes, because it's Tolarian Academy and it's incredibly busted and is fantastic. However, that 12 power worth of stationing, I think, is going to be a major drawback. It's not Tolarian Academy. It's Earthos, Titanic Hardcore. So just keep that in mind when you're playing this card or drafting this card. It is expensive. It is cool. The art is fantastic. I love that Cyclonic Rift look, you know, on this planet.
Yeah.
Another iconic blue card, but it's just one of those things where I think people are going to take this thinking it's going to be extremely good in their decks, especially if they're even drafting artifacts, you know. I just don't think there's going to be enough time to get this going. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that this is busted, because this would just show everybody how busted putting a land, you know, that can make multiple blue mana essentially for free is in gameplay. I mean, honestly, I hope it is successful, because if it is successful, I think it will turn people on a lot to other legacy formats where this is played, you know, and is a really, really great card in a lot of older formats. So, you know, it would open the door for a lot of people, I think, if this is busted and limited.
So,
all right, so let's talk about Signpost, right?
Before we get too far, let's talk about the other mechanic that we had on our radar. How much? I don't know that we talked about Void very much.
Well, Void is similar. Well, it's basically just caring about warp.
But it's more than that. It kind of strikes me as akin
there are
to
14
Revolt
cards
from
that
Aether
have
Revolt.
Yeah. There are 14 cards that have the keyword Void here. Most of them are in black, as you can see, which would track for Revolt as well. So, for example, this Plasma Bolts is a good example.
Yeah.
It does 2 damage, so it's a shock at its base. Plasma Bolt is 1 red for a sorcery. Deal 2 damage to any target, but it deals 3 damage instead if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn. So those are the things. The thing is, you know, obviously you're playing things that are warped ahead of schedule. You're playing them ahead of where they would come out normally on curve. So it definitely will play well with these void cards. You know, getting 3 damage for 1 mana lightning bolt, which we just had in the last set, which was fantastic. It's still one of the best removal spells of all time.
Absolutely.
You know, having it at sorcery speed just, you know, is the same. It just feels great. It feels really good.
Yeah,
most of these
and
cards, I would
Plasma
say,
Bolt goes to face, so
it
that'll be
does.
something we'll be talking about in our removal episode too.
Yeah. One other thing that I'd like to call out here really quick, if we're just looking at old sets to new sets, the most recent set, Final Fantasy, Boros is usually one of the best colors or, color combinations in most sets at first. And also, there's usually a dedicated Boros deck over time. We saw it with Boros/Mardu in Dragonstorm. We saw it with a little bit with Ether Drift. Before that, there was a Boros deck that was pretty aggressive. So Final Fantasy, to my knowledge, I haven't really seen Boros be a dominant color pair, which is a good thing. I think that having a rounded color pie and having all these two color archetypes pan out and even each other out where there's no dominant color pair is great for the
It's
game.
great.
I just think that, generally speaking, there's going to be a Boros deck, and this might be a return to that depending on what we see for these cards.
Yeah.
So
I
just wanted to call that out.
Let's dive into these archetypes now and kind of go and compare notes, and we can see what we think about them.
Absolutely. You want to start with the first one?
Yeah. So the first archetype is the white, blue, or Azorius, for those Ravnica fans out there, archetype.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of what you're going for in this is playing 2 spells. So you get something important or some benefit when you cast your second spell in a turn, and you get extra bonuses that way. Station Monitor is a great example of that. It is a 2 mana, white blue 2/2 creature lizard artificer, and it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 colorless drone artifact creature token with flying, and this token can block only creatures with flying. Note that it says whenever you cast your second spell each turn, not on your turn. So if you are playing at instant speed on your opponent's turn and you play 2 spells on their turn, you can trigger this on their turn as well. So keep that in mind.
Right. It's not on just your turn.
Yes. I really like this card.
Yeah, I like it too. One set that it reminds me of, again, keep going back to it, is Outlaws of Thunder Junction that also had a 2 spells archetype. Now, granted, it wasn't very good. So I don't think it was the dominant archetype in that format. However, Outlaws of Thunder Junction had Plot, which was essentially you can pay the mana for a card ahead of time and then cast it for free on a later turn. This set has Warp in it, which you are actually casting it and getting an effect the turn that you're actually playing it, as opposed to Plot, which you would pay the mana and then would get the effect much later. If you're going for a double spell type archetype, you actually are casting the card for the warp cost, and you are also able to cast that spell later when you have more mana. So it's kind of a win-win for this double spell archetype, the warp mechanic, because it'll allow you to double spell a little bit more effectively while still getting the enter the battlefields effect. Because the card is actually entering,
Did Warp have the same restriction that Plot had of you cast it on a later turn?
Yes. Yep. So you can't warp it multiple times. You can only warp it once, I believe.
Play until okay.
It stays in play until it warps out at the end of your turn.
Gotcha.
To trigger. So yeah, so I think that's a really interesting take on the 2 spell archetype, because, like I said, you cast for an earlier mana cost for a more expensive spell. So it might make things a little bit easier for this to trigger. And it's also a 2/2 for what it's worth. A 2/2 for 2 is always good. The next one we want to talk about is the Dimir signpost, which is Alfarael. I'm going to say that.
Sounds good.
Alfarael, the Dreaming Alkalite.
Yeah.
So this is 3 mana. It's 1, a blue, and a black pip. Dimir colors. For a legendary creature, human cleric. When Alfrael enters, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards unless you discard an artifact card. During your turn, Alfrael has Death Touch, and it's a 2/3. So already I'm loving everything that this card does. It draws you cards, and then if you know, at worst, it's a Faithless Looting. This is fantastic. It also has Death Touch on your turn, so it makes attacking kind of hard for your opponent to interact. They don't want to lose a creature. It also has a bigger butt. It's a 2/3. So it's kind of like Lock Cole from the Final Fantasy set. People don't really want to block it. This one gets the ability up front, though. You can draw 2 up front, whereas Lock Cole had to deal combat damage to be able to loot. Similar designs, similar card designs. I like the artwork a lot. I think it's really cool. I think that if Dimir is doing some cool artifact stuff, it also is discarding. So as we know, black has some reanimation effects that could be relevant. It's one of those things where this card, I think, is going to overperform. Cards like this typically tend to do better than it appears on their stat box. But it just seems like it's got everything going for it. It draws you cards, it's got Death Touch occasionally, and it's a 2/3, which is a pretty good blocker.
Yeah, this card is, I think, everything the Dimir mages are going to want. The archetype that, according to the draft guide that Wizards put out, says that the archetype is artifact control. Which, yeah, there is something caring about artifacts here, but I'm playing this regardless of if I'm doing an artifact thing or not, because I just want to
definitely
draw cards and shape my hand.
Absolutely. Like if you have an artifact to discard, that's fine. Otherwise, you can just throw away maybe 2 lands or something that you don't need. Okay, so the next one we have, you want to take that?
Yeah, so the next one we have is our Rakdos one, our black-red one, and the archetype for this color pair is Void. So we're caring about things leaving the battlefield or warping. And what we have here is an artifact creature robot called Interceptor Mechan. It costs 2, a black and a red for the artifact creature robot, like I said. It has flying, and when this creature enters, return target artifact or creature card from your graveyard to your hand. And then it has Void. At the beginning of your end step, if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped this turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. And it's a 2/2 flyer. It's a Gravedigger, essentially. But it's a Gravedigger that flies. I like that.
Yeah, it's a Gravedigger that flies and also has additional upside. I could definitely see this getting out of control the turn after you play it. I don't want to say it's a must answer card necessarily, but this is going to give you problems if it gets up to 3 or 4 power, as any 4 power flyer, any Serra Angel, build your own Serra Angel, is want to do. And so again, it's at your end step that stuff has to, warp in or die. But this is really good to play after you've attacked and maybe traded something off or used a removal spell and killed your opponent's creature. This will immediately grow into a 3/3 and then possibly get bigger from there. I think most times when you're going to play it, it'll be as a 4 mana 3/3 flyer that returns a creature from your graveyard to your hand or an artifact. And to me, that is pretty close to an A. I mean, that's 3 pieces of cardboard usually that you're going to be trading for 1. And so that screams value for me.
Yeah, this is something I'm going to be looking forward to drafting multiples of and finding ways to chain them together if possible.
Yeah, I mean, again, it just has to leave the battlefield. So if it was exiled, if it was destroyed, if your own creature was sacrificed, I know that Rakdos, when has Rakdos ever sacrificed anything? So getting value from either sacrificing, killing, murder, and then playing this creature, and buying back the thing that you just traded off, your opponent's going to be pretty mad about that.
Yeah, that's going to be very good. So what's the next one?
So the next one is also 3. The next one is 3 mana. It's the Gruul archetype. So this is the red-green archetype. It is Tanuk, the Memorial Ensign. It is 1 and a red and a green for a 2/4 legendary creature Kavu pilot. And this one has landfall. A really awesome ability. We saw it in Final Fantasy. Landfall very powerful on cards like Tifa, a Chocobo Racetrack. All the Chocobos have the landfall ability. So landfall that says whenever a land you control enters, Tanook deals 1 damage to each opponent. If this is the second time this ability has resolved this turn, draw a card. So kind of like Tatiova Benthic Druid, the card that gains you life and draws you cards when a land enters the battlefield. This one, 2 lands have to enter the battlefield this turn. But still, doing 1 damage to each opponent is good. It's got a big butt. It's going to stick around. A 2/4 is nothing to scoff at. And if I recall anything about green, I find that they usually do have ways of putting additional lands into play ahead of schedule. Is that
And
right,
we
Paul?
have a way to do that peppered throughout the set that we didn't talk about in the mechanics. We have landers, which are a
Yes.
new artifact type.
Okay. So a lander token. So that's what it is. It's an artifact token that has 2 tap it, sacrifice this token, search your library for a basic land, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. Yeah. Token. Oh, that's cool art.
Yeah, they look neat. I'm a big fan of clues. I'm a big fan of not so much treasure, but clues,
You're not a
blood,
fan of
all of
treasure?
those things,
Man,
food.
I'm a pirate lover, so yar.
I'm a big fan of all the non-mana producing
I see.
ones. I'm not
Got it.
anti-treasure. I've played a tokens deck casually that's been a lot of fun, but I really like all the ones that do something not just making mana. I really like this is ramping out, which is kind of the same thing, but it's a little bit different.
Like it's like a blood token, but for green.
It's a blood token, but for lands. It's not just going to draw
Yeah,
you cards, and you don't have to cash in a card.
that's right. It's instant landfall as well.
Yeah.
Instant speed landfall. The way that Poo Poo UFO worked from the last set, where you could put a land from your hand onto the battlefield at instant speed, led to some very interesting interactions. I could definitely foresee this lander token being able to be activated at any point in time. If there are landfall synergies, which there are, we just talked about them.
Yep, that'll be this archetype.
There's definitely going to be quite a bit of that. Just looking back at, the cards that had lander in their oracle text, there are 20 cards that have lander in their oracle text. I don't know if they all create lander tokens or if, there's, it looks like most of them create a lander token. So if there's 20 cards that create lander tokens, I feel like this is going to be a pretty, I don't want to say easy thing to do, but you can definitely craft a deck around this effect. And also, it helps you ramp, it helps you fix, it helps you with all the things that green is looking to do as well. This set in particular has a lot of lands that are special lands. We just talked about a few of them. So I think that utility and getting the correct lands out at the correct times is going to be very beneficial for you and should be able to help you play the game. It's gonna help you play the game, because you'll be able to cast all your spells. No more getting color screwed.
Now, this is definitely going to avoid being color screwed. It's also important. The fact that these are artifacts in a set that seems to care about artifacts is also going to be very relevant. So that's definitely going to be something as we approach deck building, as we approach drafting, we're going to be looking for ways to cheaply spit out artifacts. And this is gonna maybe landers are going to factor into that also.
All right, let's talk about the next one.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Next on the list is our Selesnya colors, green and white. We have Halia Ascendant Cadet. It's 2 green, white, which is a pretty hefty investment for a legendary creature human soldier. It's a 3/3. And whenever Halia enters or attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Whenever one or more creatures you control with +1/+1 counters on them deal combat damage to a player, draw a card.
So this is the +1/+1 archetype, which
Yeah, very
historically has not
straightforward.
been the best necessarily. I think the last time that it was maybe one of the better archetypes was maybe Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I hate
Perhaps.
calling back to that, but it
Well,
just seems like, yeah.
as we start to go through these color pairs, Gavin, I kind of feel like a lot of the archetypes we're going to see is all kind of stuff that we've seen done before in these color pairs. It doesn't feel like anything new, which is a little bit of a disappointment to me. So it remains to be seen if all the other bells and whistles that are going on in this set with warp and spacecraft and landers and planets and etc., if that still keeps this format interesting, or if we're
Fresh.
going to just be like, oh, I'm playing Selesnya tokens again or Selesnya counters again. It's the same thing I drafted back in Outlaws. It's the same thing I drafted back when, you know? So I'm hoping that it's not going to be a stale format in that regard, because I'm really excited about the new things that we've talked about. But as far as like a signpost for +1/+1 counters, this is sweet. I really like that you can put a counter on target creature you control. So it allows you to put the counter on itself and get a 4/4 at least for your 5 mana investment. But I do kind of wish there was a mana trimmed out of this. I would like this card better if it could potentially
4/4.
be a 4/4 for 4. Though I will
Yeah,
not deny that drawing cards when you hit with your +1/+1 counter creatures.
If you're in a
is sweet.
+1/+1 synergy and this just comes down and then your opponent's blocks are very awkward, it's going to be drawing you. It's going to draw you at least one card, right? I just, for some reason, 1/1 counters has always been a little bit of a harder sell for me, mostly because you dump all of these resources, these 1/1 counters and things into your creatures, and then, for 1 or 2 mana, maybe you have a 2/2 that you just pumped into a 3/3 because this entered, and then you look at red and it's got, on the next turn, a 3 mana shock, or a 1 mana shock or a 1 mana lightning bolt on your creature, and they just spent 1 mana and you spent 5,
Yeah.
and
Feels
it doesn't
bad.
feel great. Doesn't feel great. And to me, sometimes it's a little bit of a guessing game as to where to put the counters so that your opponents don't kill it, because they're always going to kill the best threat, right? It's hard to spread your threats out enough to where everything is menacing. So to me, I'm excited. I mean, have we had a card like this before? I can't recall one. I mean, the closest thing that comes to mind is Bristly Bill, but Bristly Bill
Was a
added a 1/1
mythic.
counter whenever a land, and it was a mythic. So
Yeah.
any creatures that are going to add 1/1 counters on enter or on attack are usually pretty good. Let's talk about the next archetype, though, because that one is pretty interesting to me. It's the black-white archetype, or Orzhov, and this is Sir Vondam the Lucent. It is also 5 mana. It's 2 white and 2 black pips for a legendary creature, Human Knight. Has Death Touch and Lifelink. Already a great start. And whenever Sir Vondam enters or attacks, other creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain Death Touch until end of turn. Now, this is going to make your creatures pretty hard to block.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to block and or not take 1,000,000 damage from itself. It's 5 mana for a 4/4, which is an okay rate. But honestly, giving all your other creatures +1/+0 is already a great effect. We've already seen that in other creatures. Like anything that gives all of your other creatures a +1/+0 is already very good. We saw that in Ether Drift. We saw that in, what are some other formats that we've seen this? I mean, it's happened quite a bit where if anything gets a static buff across the board, it's usually pretty good. This one also gives Death Touch. So, I'm very high on this card. I think it's going to be very good, especially if you can get some small tokens, and there's some other tokens in the formats that you can kind of use and pump up. This is a very good go wide strategy.
Yeah, this seems like one of the strategies I'm most excited about in this format so far, just because this card as like the centerpiece of that strategy just feels so powerful to me.
Yeah, I mean, I love the art as well, and the flavor text is amazing. A new dawn, burning away the darkness. I mean, that seems really awesome to me. I'm very excited. I think this is one of my favorite uncommons from the set so far, just on the previews. I think it could be a pretty good archetype. Now let's talk artifacts, Paul.
Yeah, let's talk. Is it? We've got
Hmm.
Memnon, Uthros Exile, or is it Memnon? Memnon, Uthros Exile.
Sounds
It is,
delicious.
yeah, it's in Is It colors. It's 1 red, blue for a legendary creature jellyfish advisor, which we'd have to look. I don't
Obviously,
think
you
we've
have to be
seen too many
advised.
jellyfish in Magic's
You have
history.
to be advised by a jellyfish. They are one of the creatures that is known for having the largest brains. Wait, no.
No, strike that. Reverse it.
Strike that,
No.
reverse it.
But
They have no brains, right?
This is a 1/3 flyer with whenever an artifact you control enters, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Which we were just talking earlier about being able to pump out lander tokens with things in this set. Artifacts in general kind of matter. You can warp
Again,
out
there's like
artifacts
72 artifacts. Yeah,
Yeah.
there's 72 artifacts in the set. Just in general, that's like a third of the set. There's going to be a lot of artifacts, even incidental artifacts, even in colors that you wouldn't necessarily expect artifacts to be in, like green. It's like one of those things that this is going to be ubiquitous throughout the set. And for a jellyfish that shouldn't have a brain, this guy seems pretty smart. This guy, I think, is going to be a must answer. Even if you pump himself on the first artifact that enters, a 2/4 with flying is fantastic.
Yeah, this is gonna block all day.
It's going to block all day and just makes all of your other creatures better and makes your opponent kind of dread the fact that there could be more artifacts coming. And if you're building your deck the right way, I mean, even if you play him on 4, even if you play him on 4 with a 1 mana artifact or something like that, or on 5 with a 2 mana artifact, you're going to get your value right away.
Speaking of that, do we have a 1 mana artifact that we could play this on 4 and immediately pump with an artifact?
That's a good question.
That is a good
Let's
question.
Find out.
I am to the Scryfall.
To the Scryfall. Away. We
got lots
15.
of stuff in white and blue. We've got Cavern Harrier. So we've got Atomic Microsizer in blue, Synthesizer Lab Ship in blue, Caveron Harrier in red, Slagdrill Scrapper in red, Rust Harvester in red.
We also have the colorless Nutrient Block, which is an indestructible food.
Which is sweet.
And Thaumaton Torpedo, and Synthesizer Lab Ship, which is a spacecraft.
Yeah, so there's options here.
There's quite a few options.
The Is It colors will love this, and if you're splashing other colors, or you're in a 3-color deck, you're definitely going to have options.
I mean,
so that's very cool.
There are 16 where the mana value is 2. That's not including the 1 mana ones. And a lot of these are in blue. So there's Chirogen Relic, Emissary Escort, Ilovi Lightjammer, Mechan Navigator, Mechan Shieldmate, Melded Moxie, Ornaplate Pangolin, Steel Swarm Operator, Wormwall Sweeper as a colorless one, Zookeeper Mechan, and the Dominion Bracelet. I mean, it seems like you've got a lot of options, even if it doesn't impact the board immediately. This is something you'll have to deal with at some point. It's going to get out of control pretty fast.
I dig it.
You'll have like maybe one turn to deal with it, and then maybe not even that. What crime did you commit that makes me your best option? Says Tezzeret. Yeah, I mean, I think that this is going to be one of the best cards in the set, to be honest with you.
I'm with you on that. As much as I like the Orzhov archetype, this is another archetype high on my list to draft if I see it available.
If it didn't have flying, I think it would go down a little bit for me, but it does. Ridiculous.
Yeah,
All right,
having flying,
let's
I
talk
think, is
about
huge.
the Golgari.
Yeah, inset.
We've got the Siege Ship Broodtender. This one is just 2 mana. It's the Golgari mana, so black and green. Creature Insect Citizen. When this creature enters, mill 3 cards. That's very Golgari. And then it's got an activated ability of 3 and then Golgari, so 5 mana total. And it says, sacrifice this creature, return target creature or spacecraft card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Activate only as a sorcery. So this is a reanimator effect on a creature. That's a 2/3 to start.
Yeah, for a 2 mana 2/3 is great already. Kind of, I'm on board with that. Mill 3 cards.
It fills your graveyard, so it's an enabler and a payoff.
Yeah, that's
what
huge.
you want for 2 mana.
Yeah, that's a lot for 2 mana.
I mean, it
Our
is a little bit more
fans
expensive
out there
than.
all rejoiced when they saw this card. They
Yeah,
know
I
who
mean,
they are.
Valgavoth's Faithful from Duskmourn is the. I mean, there are some 4 mana reanimation effects, like Zombify and Valgavoth's Faithful, but this one is 5 mana, which again, not too much different than that. But this one also fuels your graveyard. You don't have to have a discard outlet or something else that will put your big things in the bin. If you have a couple of these, you're milling 6 cards minimum. They line up really good on blocks, and reanimating your best stuff. I also like how flavorful it is. I mean, like, if you think about insects, they go in the dirt, and then they sacrifice themselves for the queen or the good of the hive. That's very flavorful for me as well.
And what's that flavor text say?
It says inspiration blossoms from fertile rot. And is it just me, or does that kind of look like the ant from Bug's Life?
Definitely looks like something's popping out there. So
yeah. All right, so let's talk about the next one. This one is for Boros.
This is our Boros one. So this is Sammy Ship's
Obligatory
Engineer.
cat.
Yes,
nice.
Obligatory cat in the artwork. So points there. Sammy Ship's Engineer is 2 red and white for a 2/4, which decent stat line. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 2 or more tapped creatures, create a tapped 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token.
Okay. Artifact.
Okay, yeah, we got something that's making artifacts. We also have something that's paying us off for stationing our creatures. Something that's providing a benefit attached to warp things. So we warped in something, we stationed, it was tapped, and now we're just kind of rinse and repeat, and we're making an army of 2/2 colorless robots.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, this is 4 mana, so it's not coming down quickly. Similar to other Boros signposts, usually they're less mana than 4, typically. But this one cares about other creatures being tapped, either because they're attacking your opponent, which is something Boros loves to do, or they're providing a benefit in another way, which is by stationing, or if you're warping something in and you're using it to station your giant spacecraft, and then at the end step, you've got a couple, if you use Sammy to station one of your spaceships, that can count as one of the 2 creatures as well, because it doesn't care about itself. It doesn't say other creatures. It just says creatures. So this is going to be really good for stationing. This is going to be really good for attacking, for decks that care about being aggressive and gaining value. I think this is going to be a great card, because it also, if you're being aggressive, you're liable to get cracked back on. And it's pretty good as a blocker is a 2/2 artifact robot. So I think that that's going to be a fantastic. I mean,
Are you happy with the stat line on this?
I think the stat line is great. I really do.
Okay. I'm not sure if I wanted this to be...
the stat line is fine. Yeah, it could have been a 3/3. I just think that as a 2/4, it'll be not a dead draw if you're not super aggressive. Do you know what I mean? So
totally.
Like if you're flooding out, or you're getting later in the game and you're running out of action. This might be able to help stall out a little bit so that you don't, just succumb to overwhelming pressure. Now, is it going to be the best card for attacking with? Probably not. No, this is a defensive Boros creature, which is unusual for me to say, but its real strength lies in other creatures becoming tapped, not necessarily itself. I mean, the other thing too is it makes another creature for stuff to be tapped next turn, so it fuels itself as well. All right, last one. We've got the last archetype here, which is the Simic. It's
doing
green
ramp
and
stuff.
blue.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You want to take this one?
Yeah, so Biomechan Engineer is green-blue for a 2/2. It's a creature insect artificer, and when this creature enters, create a lander token. It's an artifact with 2 tap. Sacrifice this artifact, search your library for a basic land card, and put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And it has an activated ability of, is that 8?
8.
8. Draw 2 cards and create a 2/2 colorless robot artifact creature token. So,
okay.
These are
so
your ramp
late
colors,
game,
doing
not a
ramp
dead draw.
things, make a lot of mana, draw a
For
bunch of
8
cards,
mana,
make a bunch of robots.
For 8 mana, drawing 2 cards. I mean, when you get later in the game and it's a board stall, like that could be the difference in the game, is the fact that you're drawing 2 cards a turn and your opponent is not. Because you'll get to your answers or things that can save you faster. I really think that the lander token is going to be one of the best things that you can do with, saving your instant speed interaction to either use your lander token or hold up some interaction. So the fact that this creates a lander token for free is fantastic.
2-drop that's making that and has another ability tacked on. That's a lot for 2 mana.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you're playing this later in the game, it's not a dead draw. It does do something. It's got an activated ability, and it doesn't sack or anything like that. You can do this ability indefinitely.
Yeah, but it doesn't even tap.
Obviously,
it's totally open ended.
Yeah, totally open ended. The thing is, like, again, 8 mana abilities, or if you're spending 8 mana on something, you better get something pretty special in return. Getting a 2/2 and drawing 2 cards is fine. It's good. I just don't see myself activating this too much. I think it's going to be used more for, again, that lander token, and the regular body that it provides, which is just a 2/2. Obviously, it remains to be seen if Simic is going to be one of the best color pairs, because it does seem to me like, ramping out your big threats early is always a viable strategy. But it's not like this one comes out and gets you a land into play or even gets a land into your hand. It just gives you the option of getting an additional land on your next turn. It will help with mana flood and mana screw. It'll help with mana flood and mana screw. Spoilers for future Pick One Pack One episode where we talk about flood insurance, but it's one of those things where, like, when you're trying to ramp, the fact that you have to pay 2 mana, the fact that it's also very specific mana, a blue mana and a green mana, if you have this on turn 2 and you just have 2 blue cards or blue mana in your hand, it's going to feel really bad. Or, same thing with 2 green mana. But I think in those edge cases, it's fine. It's just, you're getting color screwed. I just don't know how
ideally
often
you're going to
be playing it.
Have built your deck so that you'll have both your colors on turn 2 to play this on curve.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. I think it's a fine card. The most exciting ones for me, I think, are Memnon, Sir Vondam the Lucent, and Sammy. Those were my 3 picks as my kind of favorite.
I'm with
you.
Archetypes. 2 of the 3. I really like the blue-red. I really like the white-black. I'm very into doing either Rakdos shenanigans with the Interceptor?
Yeah, the Interceptor
Mechan, or doing Dimir stuff with Alpha Real.
Yeah, I mean, Alfrail just seems like a very good value card. I think he'll
Yeah,
probably fly under the radar a little bit. So those are all the archetypes that we wanted to talk about. We think that this set is going to be maybe a little bit on the slower side, just based on what we've seen from the preview so far.
potentially.
That's my take on it, but we could be wrong. No, we're not
I want to
infallible.
get in. I want to get into some of those questions about the format because, as we usually do after we go over the archetypes, we do have kind of questions about the set that we like
Mm-hmm.
to discuss. Before we get to that,
Definitely.
though, I want to call everyone's attention to a card that will possibly get day zero errata. Mark,
Mm.
this is a
Mm-hmm.
card called Diplomatic Relations that folks are talking about on Blue Sky.
Mm-hmm. You want
This
to read it
is
out?
Yeah, this is 2 and a green for an instant, and it says creature gets +1/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. It deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. Note that it does not say target creature you control gets +1/+0 and gains vigilance until end of turn. So by the way this card is worded, you can actually target one of your opponent's creatures to have it get +1/+0 and then deal damage to itself. So
Yeah.
green getting a murder feels a little bit wrong.
Mm.
So I suspect that this card is gonna get errata possibly because typically when we
Mm-hmm.
see what is ostensibly a bite spell, it requires a
Mm-hmm.
creature on the battlefield for you to take
From your side.
advantage of it. Not having
Right.
a creature on the battlefield yourself and getting to let your
Mm-hmm.
opponent's creature bite itself or bite another
Mm-hmm.
creature is kind of wild.
Yeah.
Very rarely have we
We have
seen
had.
something like that. We've had Mutiny back
Yeah. Right.
in Ixalan where you chose an
Right.
opponent's creature and it dealt damage to another opponent's
Yeah.
creature. But that was also
Yeah, and
in
Breaking of
red.
the Fellowship in red
Yeah,
in
both of
Lord of
those
the
were
Rings.
red effects. We've never seen anything like that in green, and I would be really surprised if this stays around as worded. But something to be on people's radar. If Wizards doesn't make any errata changes to this, you can definitely use it to have your opponent's individual creature on the battlefield when you have no other creatures yourself nuke itself,
Yeah.
assuming that
It's
it doesn't have bigger toughness than power.
yeah, right. But it gets a +1/+0 bonus, so even if it's, a 3/4, you still can make it kill itself.
Yeah,
Which to me doesn't feel very green, forcing a creature to kind of eat itself, maybe, I guess. And it is like a bite effect. I'm just thinking that this either could have been a design mistake or it could just be that they're trying something new with the card design and maybe changing a little bit about the color pie. I highly suspect that it was
so
just an error though.
Gavin, I'm going to take my
It
space
happens.
helmet off and I'm going to put my tinfoil hat
Your
on.
tinfoil hat. Okay. Yep.
And I'm going to say that this was a mistake because this was a commander card that was meant to have you choose a target that some other player controlled and have that creature fight a
The
deal
diplomatic part
damage.
of
Yes, the
diplomatic
diplomatic
relations.
part of diplomatic relations, you know?
Mm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe it was just didn't receive the proper wording so that
Mm-hmm.
it's allowing funky things like targeting the thing and having the thing bite itself.
Yeah. Well, however it plays out, I'm sure we'll get clarity on it one way or another. I mean, the pre-release weekend is this upcoming weekend, the weekend of the 23rd, I believe. Is
Yep.
that right? Yeah.
So
Or the 20,
it is the 25th. So
July
by
20th.
the time you're listening to this, it will be the 24th.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in the past right now, several days. But in the future, when this comes out, you'll have about 24, 48 hours
Mm-hmm.
before we're pre-releasing. So
We're just calling it to your attention. Yeah,
yeah,
we want to make sure that you're aware of that
if
particular
no changes
interaction
get
because it
made
was
to,
it was odd.
yes. So
One thing that I also want to call out is that there is one planeswalker in the set, which is Tezzeret, the Cruel Captain, cares about artifacts. It's a mythic, so You may not see it a lot. Whenever an artifact you control, it's a 3 mana planeswalker, which, you know, we've seen a few of those in the past few sets. But again, this is an artifact heavy set, so this is going to be the artifact planeswalker that cares about artifacts. So it's 3 mana, and the 3 loyalty abilities are, it starts at 4 loyalty, by the way. And it says whenever an artifact you control enters, put a loyalty counter on Tezzeret.
Yeah,
Has
it
a
has
0
no
ability
plus.
of,
It has no
it has
plus
no plus.
abilities.
The only way to put loyalty counters on it, aside from maybe proliferating, is by playing artifacts. So 0 says untap target artifact or creature. If it's an artifact creature, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then -3 is search your library for an artifact or card with mana value 1 or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then -7 ability is you get an emblem with, at the beginning of combat on your turn, put 3/1/1 counters on a target artifact you control. If it's not a creature, it becomes a 0/0 robot artifact creature. So
Sweet.
very sweet, very cool.
Vintage and Legacy love this card.
They certainly will. I mean, they have more artifacts than we can count. With the Mox and every single type of a legendary artifact, you've got your Tolarian Academies there. This is a really good card for those types of formats. I don't see it being as busted here, even if it is an artifact set.
If you build and draft your deck appropriately, you might get some value out of this.
Yeah, and it's also a lightning rod. You know, people will want to kill this because of just the general value. Now, I don't know how many artifact cards with mana value 1 or less are going to be in your deck. Maybe there's only a couple hits for that, but at least ticking it up passively and untapping artifacts, maybe a mana rock, maybe it's an artifact creature that, you know, has pseudo vigilance now. It's one of those things where
creature or artifact, Gavin, artifact creature that you've stationed with, and then you untap it and do it again.
Yeah, that's also a great use of this. Certainly, there are many good use cases for this.
Well, that leads us to the closing question, Gavin, of how good do you think Spacecraft will be?
I keep calling it a spaceship, Spacecraft, right? Yeah. I think that it's going to be the defining part of the set. I mean, really, if you're making Edge of Eternities as a set that's set in space, spaceships are going to be a part of that. I don't think that I think there's only a couple of common spacecraft, so you may not see them as often as you see some others, but they're probably worth building around and certainly worth the mana investment and the power investment because they often have really, really good abilities. Like, for example, this one, this Dawnsire Sunstar Dreadnought, which is 5 mana and it's color, so it goes in any deck. For 10 plus, it's not a creature, but it has this ability that says whenever, it basically is like an enchantment, kind of. Whenever you attack, Dawnsire deals 100 damage to up to 1 target creature or planeswalker. So it's the Death Star's Death Beam, you know? That's just nuking whatever it is, you know, out of orbit. And that's, you know, after you've pumped 10 power worth of, you know, creature power into this. So
at station 20, it becomes a 20/20.
At station 20, it's a 20/20. Yeah. So a one-shot KO. Honestly, I think that a lot of these spacecraft are worth building around, you know. There's some in every color, so you'll have your pick of which ones you want if you open it in draft or you have some you're sealed. I would prioritize kind of looking out for these as build arounds.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in ones that potentially have either cheap activations, so you can station them for relatively
like
cheap, or they
frigate.
give you some kind of a benefit when they enter the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Or some kind of static ability that you can get to relatively easy also, you know? So looking at what are the benefits of it. I wouldn't think about these the same way that you think about vehicles, because these are going to be slower than vehicles. It's very few of them that you're going to drop it and immediately be able to like crew it and go smash face as we've seen with vehicles in some other vehicle-centric formats. So
Mm-hmm.
a little bit more ponderous to get going, but once they get going, they don't stop being creatures. So
Right. One spaceship in particular I wanted to call attention to was this Warmaker gunship, which is 3 mana, 2 in a red. When the spacecraft enters, it deals damage equal to the number of artifacts you control to target creature and opponent controls. So again, if artifacts and artifact synergies are anything that are, we're pointing out, this is going to be a pretty good kill spell, and later on it becomes a creature. Slash of light, but has a creature attached to it.
yeah. So spacecraft,
Pretty
pretty
good.
sweet. What do you think of warp? How good is
I
warp
think
in this set?
I think warp is going to be a pretty good. I mean, adventure is very good, and that was kind of a set defining mechanic. I always felt good because even if you kept, I don't want to say a sketchy hand, but a hand that didn't have much to do until turn 3 or 4, you felt like you could at least impact the board a little bit with these adventures, or in this case, warp mechanics. How it will play out in the long run remains to be seen. We'll have to find out. But I'm very interested. I think it's going to be a really cool set. I mean, I love space. I've loved space since I was a little kid. All of these cool designs, these interesting planets, and I'm a sucker for the Infinity lands. I love the full art borderless lands. Non-foil, I always go with the non-foil versions, but I've been collecting them for my draft set. Like when I go to draft, I want to have 10 of each color, and so I hope that this set can bring us some amazing art. I know it's already got some amazing art in it. The sci-fi epic really is speaking to me, and I feel like there's going to be some really beautiful cards for me to collect in this set.
Yeah. Speaking of beautiful lands, we'd be remiss not talking about lands that you're gonna see only about 1 in every 8 packs or so. There's 45 of them. These are the stellar sites, which are some pretty wildly powerful lands.
Very powerful lands. I mean, any land that gives you double mana,
Yeah.
usually pretty good. Ancient Tomb is absolutely busted. It gives you 2 colorless mana for 2 damage to you. It's a $149 card currently, this version of it. Other versions of it, even more so. But this is the chase. This is the chase land of all of the chase lands, Ancient Tomb. Having it available in a limited format seems insane to me because you can just play a 3-drop on turn 2 for no additional cost other than 2 life. You're playing everything ahead of curve, even just by playing the game, So
Yeah.
be on the lookout for this.
Yeah.
If you open this in draft, or you
it's
open this
very
in
rare
sealed,
that it's going to happen. But if you do see this in your pool, or you do get a chance to draft it, you're not just drafting this for the money. You're drafting it to do something busted and limited.
it's absolutely busted and limited as well. Yeah, that's not always the case. Sometimes you're drafting money over limited synergy, but in this case, this does everything that you want to do. It's giving you ramp without having to play a single card. There are some other lands in here that are also very, very good.
There's creature
Deserted
lands.
Temple,
There's
it's
gemstone
fantastic with
caverns.
Ancient Tomb.
Yeah.
Echoing Deeps is pretty good. There aren't any Eldrazi. There's only one Eldrazi in the set, and only one thing that cares about slivers. So the Eldrazi Temple isn't necessarily necessarily a pickable card, but Lotus Field is super good.
And the art is wild.
The art is insane. I mean, I'm just like, I want all of these. Even if I'm not going to put the card in any deck, I still want them. Incredible. There's one other section which we didn't talk about yet, which is the special guest section. There are 10 special guest cards. Again, these are the reprints that are from other past sets. This time they're in kind of a sci-fi cover, like similar to the old school pulp fiction, novels.
Yeah, 20th century magazines and books.
Absolutely.
for the kids out there. I love these. They look
Yeah, I'm excited to see them. A little hard to read. Gonna say it's just little hard to read. If you didn't know
Yeah,
what the card already was, then you may have a hard time reading it. But there are some really good ones here, especially the Sliver Overlord. That's
yeah.
a really iconic card.
Money aside, which one of these do you want to open in limited? Which do you think is the most
Hmm,
exciting?
that's a good question. Can I let you go first? I think I have my answer, but I feel like I
I
want to
mean,
hear
I
it
kind of
from
want
you
to do
first.
Nexus of Fate things. Nexus of Fate is just
Yeah,
broken.
that was gonna be my pick as well.
But
I mean,
I would
taking extra
say
turns.
I would say my sleeper choice would be Darkness, because I love it when my opponent sets up an attack and they think it's going to be great and they think it's going to be the game, and then I spend 1 mana and fog them. This is
Hmm.
the classic fog, but in the color black.
Mm-hmm.
So
Honestly, I would say burgeoning might be my aside from Nexus of Fate.
okay,
I think burgeoning is pretty good, especially if you're on the play or excuse me, the draw. It'll just help
catch you right
you
up.
keep up with all their keep up with all their ramping and everything. Certainly not as busted as Nexus of Fate or maybe Green Sun Zenith would be another one that I would consider playing. Most of these are just, eye candy though.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that looks like everything as far
Yeah,
as
that's the whole
I can
primer.
tell. Yeah. Gavin, where can we be found online? Where can people
Well, you
chime
can
in
always
with their thoughts on this set and talk to us? Tell us how their pre-release
yeah,
went.
I mean, tell us how your pre-release went. I mean, tell us how you feel about the speed at which we're warping through all of these sets. Obviously, if you are a fan of sci-fi, if you're a fan of the set, let us know. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify at Pick One Pack One Pod, and you can also hit us up on Blue Sky and Instagram. We're more than happy to share our feelings on the set and everything else. Let us know what
Our
cards you're looking forward
emotions,
to playing
our
with.
Edge of Eternity emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just, have fun, be a good sport, remember to play well, and have fun.
Yeah. We'll go to the end step and pass the turn.
Yeah. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks so much for listening. Have a good one.
Bye.